Welcome to Why I Quit, a show that covers real people quitting their 9-to-5 jobs in search of something different. Listen to inspiring conversations where we dive deep into the stories of why people quit their jobs, what were the hardest parts, where are they now, and any advice for people following the same path. We are so excited to introduce Jason Browne as this week's guest on Why I Quit. Listen to Jason share his amazing story from quitting his full-time job at Penn State to testing and validating different business ideas. Learn how he thinks about the types of ventures he wants to do based on a personal SWOT analysis he conducts every 3 to 6 months. Get inspired hearing about his successes as a public speaker, award-winning radio host, a Facebook gaming partner, a consultant, and a Rotarian. Hey, Jason, thanks so much for joining me today.
Of course, Dave. How you doing, man?
It's nice to meet you. I'm excited to hear about your story. Do you mind starting a little bit about where you're from and your education background?
Yeah, of course. What's up, everybody? My name is Jason Browne. I grew up in Philly. I now live in State College, Pennsylvania. It's a small dot on a map that you only go to when you're either going to school or you're going to a football game, or you're trying to find, or you get lost. That's probably the other time that you come to Happy Valley. I went to Penn State University for my undergrad and my graduate school, and I kind of just stuck around. I worked for Penn State for a while, and so that's where I'm currently at.
And when you were going to Penn State, was there, a specific career path you had in mind? Were you trying to figure it out? And what did that look like?
So when I was in high school and growing up, I always loved math. I love math and I love science. And I also loved chess, right? And that's a very calculated game to play. So my parents were like, go into engineering, right? That's what you should do because you like math. And I was like, okay, I guess. And so I wasn't really passionate about engineering per se. I had very few instances where I was exposed to engineering in a way that I was really fascinated by it, but it made the most amount of sense. And I was like, okay, well, fine, I'll do some engineering. When I was in college, it kind of zapped all of my desires to do anything with engineering. There weren't enough hands-on experiences earlier on in the program that really drew me in. And I was distracted by a whole bunch of other things like being in a band and doing martial arts and teaching salsa and all of these other things that come along with the college career. I lost my interest very quickly with engineering. I went to mechanical engineering. And then for my grads, and then after that, my job right after that had nothing to do with engineering. I went into IT. All my jobs were in IT. Then I eventually got a job in IT. I was already being a rebel even before I left college, right? And then I was like, grad school, what can I do for grad school? I was at Penn State. They had a tuition discount because I worked for them. I was like, I might as well do it because they're not paying me enough. So I was like, might as well get more bang for my buck. And so I went back to grad school. And the only thing I could think of that was, generic enough, regular enough was an MBA, Master's of Business of Administration, to just kind of give me a level set and elevate me for the future, wherever that was going to take me. And that's kind of my education background, both undergraduate and graduate, and even high school.
Growing up, did you ever have any entrepreneurial aspirations? Was that ever anything on the radar, or what did that look like? Well,
it's interesting that you asked that. When I was growing up, my father encouraged me to go mow lawns, right? There's a lawnmower, go make your own money. Stop asking me for some. That's pretty much what it came down to, right? And so when I was, I think, 13, I started getting some lawns. And eventually I got up to 13 or 14 lawns I was doing all by myself. Now, if I had a few friends that were if I had a few adult friends that were more entrepreneurial, I actually think that I could have turned that into something that could have been even sustainable to today because people liked me and I did a really, really, really good job. But I didn't have the mindset of being like, all right, I'm going to hire someone at 14 or 15, I'm gonna, hey buddy, I'll even, the government didn't need to know, hey friend, I'll pay you $10 to help me with this lawn. I never thought of doing anything like that, but I did make a bunch of money when I was a kid mowing lawns. And I wish I would have, I'd even told my father, I was like, Dad, when my when my sister has her kids, my nieces and my nephews, when they're growing up, Dad, we need to make sure they understand that they can create a business. They can do this. They can hire people. They can get people to do more work for them and still benefit the people that they're hiring at the same time. That's possible. What about an LLC? Now, like what all of these things I realized as an adult, like if I knew back then when I was just mowing lawns, the possibilities that were there, even if I couldn't actually do it as a kid, which I think you can, my horizons would have been opened up way further at a younger age. But it took a little while, but I got there.
Fast forward to, graduating from grad school, where's your head at in terms of, are you looking for a full-time job? Do you have something lined up? Do you have a path moving forward? What does that look like?
So when I finished grad school, I was still very much into my Penn State career. I was like, I'm going to elevate and get myself up there and be like a manager, be a top person dog at the university, Nittany Lions, bleed blue. Like I was very much into like, they give me good benefits. I get reasonable pay. I can elevate. People seem to like me. I'm going to keep pushing forward. That's where I really want to go. And so what I began to do is I began to put up all my accolades around my office, began to put it in my signatures, of course, drop like, hey, when I was in class for my, my master's, that like during meetings, just so I could, name drop a little bit so that, people would subconsciously put me into a place that was a little bit more elevated. That's what I did for a while. That's what I did for a good bit. But the thing was, eventually that wasn't enough. You know what I mean? That wasn't I didn't get a lot of fulfillment. I kept doing things. Like I kept creating committees. I kept creating work groups. I kept wanting to teach educational courses or book classes to other employees. And everybody would be like, Jason, you're doing a lot. I'd be like, yeah, my paycheck doesn't say so. And so so I was looking for these outlets of using all of these things I was learning and all the creativity that's in my brain. I was looking for a way to do something with it. And at a place like Penn State, they don't always know what to do with someone like that. Like they're a great employer from a standpoint of like, you want to do this thing, we'll elevate you to do that one thing. And maybe you can step outside a little bit. But for someone like me that has 100 ideas, that wants to just play around and learn and elevate myself, especially after grad school, that wasn't something that they were really ready for. So eventually I found my way away from Penn State, although they kind of helped that process. And that's kind of where my head was at then and still to this day.
Was there a specific idea or a specific moment that kind of led to that where you were like, okay, I want to pursue, this, or, was there like a light bulb moment that kind of like led to that next venture? What did that look like?
So when leaving Penn State, they were getting rid of my position. And so the first time that I left the job, which was with Penn State, I didn't try probably as hard as I probably could have to get another role. So I can't say that I completely on my own was like, know what? I'm doing my own thing. See you later. It wasn't completely that. It was more like, if I get a job, cool. If I don't, there's some other things that I'm working on. And so I began to, leading up to that, I was doing a few things. One, I was doing some content creation through what was Mixer through Microsoft and what is now Facebook Gaming. I was doing that with a good buddy of mine. And while it wasn't like hugely lucrative, it was something, right? And then I was doing a little bit more speeches. I was giving a few more speeches around the United States, and I was like, it's not really lucrative yet, but it's something. Then all these ideas that I had in my head, I was like, why don't we try to test some of these things out? You know what I mean? Like I began to play. I began to play and dabble into some of the things that were in my head. And quite honestly, it was nice because I still had, during those earlier days, I had a little bit more security with the Penn State job, even though it was like ending. It was still like, it gave me a little bit of a comfort to know like I can play around for a little. I have 6 months to play around, right? But reality, though, I had that opportunity the entire time that I was working there. But it took the moment for it to be like, what if I don't have this job? What if I do something for myself? Okay, well, let's play around. It took that moment to click in for me before I could really take action.
I know something entrepreneurs talk about all the time is, trying to figure out how to like narrow down the specific idea or validate a specific idea. I'm curious of how you looked at, all of your different ideas to kind
Mm-hmm.
of, try out a lot of things, but make sure you have enough time and effort to devote to a specific amount of ones to give them justice to work. And so, like, how did you think about that side of it?
That's I think where my MBA mind kicked in a little bit, and just life. I was like, okay, I didn't know what minimal viable product was when I was like 18 or 20, but I did after my MBA. I was like, what's the simplest thing that I can just try? Like, what's an idea out of all the ones that I have that I could just be like, let's see what happens. And it doesn't take a whole lot of work or a whole lot of money. I have to put myself out there. Like, I have to be vulnerable enough. And that's a given. Like, you have to be able to be vulnerable enough to go ahead and do it. But you could even rate what's a little less vulnerable. How can I do this in a little less way so I'm not like, oh my gosh, I did this for the first time, and like you're pulling out your hair, or like you're super nervous and you can't go to sleep. I look for something that was like somewhat exciting. I put myself out there, but not completely. Like, I didn't put everything on the line or put myself out in front of 100,000 people. I figured out something that was going to be not completely driving my entire income, but maybe something supplementary. And then I figured out ways of tying that into other things I was interested in. So I'll give you an example. One of the first products that I did was something called Taste of Happy Valley. And that was an idea of creating like a little gift box that had all the things from Happy Valley in it, from Penn State to the football to like local stuff that companies would then use to like send to their to the clients at Christmas time, or when at football games people came through, they didn't know what to have or give to their friends, they would pick up one of these boxes and it would change all the time, and you could just do that. And I sold a few, created a marketplace, a little store front, online, reached out to the companies and businesses, procured all the products, figured out what the pricing model should look like, all of those things. Yeah, it did take a little bit of time and a little bit of math, but it wasn't that big of a deal. It was a box with some stuff in it, right? Like, and you figure out, okay, how do I advertise for this? Okay, well, maybe I'll try this ad. That didn't work. Try this ad. That didn't work. Let's just do something crazy and try something else. That kind of worked. Maybe my weird ideas do work. Okay. And eventually that kind of faded out. That the Taste of Happy Valley faded out. I was not able to sustain it or get the sales that I thought were reasonable, so I just shut it down. And I think I'm still like snacking on some of the snacks that I had. Like, that's the benefit. If it doesn't work out, you got a whole bunch of extra stuff you can eat. That was an example of a time in which I began to test some ideas and began to say, how do I do this? And even if it doesn't work out, even if you do it wrong, especially your first go through, it's okay. It's all right. That's why you start off easy. You start off easy, and then if it bombs completely, you're like, well, I learned a whole lot. And that is something that I learned from a lot of my friends before I close this particular point, is that when you do start something new, you don't have to keep a journal of every single thing, but pay attention to the things that don't work out and pay attention to the things that do really work out, especially early on, because you're like, and how you connect with that thing. Take just mental notes down and be like, oh, I am creative, or working with these companies is a beneficial thing, or I do better making sure that I have my own personal office, or go to the library, or work outside. Just make little mental notes about all of these things so that when you go to the next project, you'd be like, all right, I'm pulling this. Let's not do these things at first. Let's get our ball moving and keep it pushing from there.
Something we talk about a lot on this show is the expectations versus reality of that first year with, without the job and trying different things. And what did that look like for you? What was your confidence level going in? What was the actual reality of it?
After I left Penn State, the main thing that I had was the content creation portion. And I just dove right in. I put all of my energy into it. I was trying to find ways of doing all the things that I just mentioned, tying all the positive things about my personality, all of our strengths. Like, I did multiple SWOT analysis. If you don't know what that is strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of myself, like as an individual. And I said, what are the things as an individual? How do I look at myself as something that I can then move forward with. And then I looked at that and I said, okay, streaming and content creation is the thing that I want to focus on. How do I use my strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats associated with that? And then I began to really dig into it. And I went full-fledged. I didn't slow down. I reached out to a bunch of folks. I tried new ideas all the time. I made myself super vulnerable, sometimes even more vulnerable than I am now, because I've kind of gotten into somewhat of a routine. Use that energy up front to push yourself a little bit more. Don't burn yourself out, but push yourself a little bit more. So I would say that the feeling that I had when I left Penn State was more of like, I can prove to them and to myself that I can do this on my own. And that was the overwhelming feeling that I had. I would say that fear wasn't even a huge portion of it. I got nervous at times when you would put yourself out there and want to try something new and be like, I don't know if this is going to work. Like there was, I guess, a certain unknown factor, and you get the butterflies in your stomach and you're like, oh my God, like, is this going to work? And then if something goes wrong, you're like, oh my gosh, this sucks. But like at the end of the day, or at the beginning of the day, it wasn't fear that drove me. It was a need to prove to the people that I've ever worked with, to anybody that ever second guessed me in a meeting, to anyone that says, are you sure you want to go off and do this on your own? It was to prove to them and to myself that yes, I can. And I'm going to do some cool stuff. Just sit back and watch and possibly buy something. Like that was, that was the perspective that I had.
I know you have a bunch of different ventures, that you're working on. So, when you were off on your own, was there a specific moment when you're like, oh, I made it, or this is sustainable, or, a level where you felt more comfortable, at least after striking out on your own?
I would say temporarily. So right now I have a contract, we have a contract. So one of the content creation portion is something called All Rebels, or AW Rebels, or Afterwork Rebels. It's spelled AW Rebels. And we have a contract with Facebook that, renews every year. Just like when you're in your own business and you have contracts, you feel pretty good when you get the contract. You feel a little nervous when you come up to the time to renew, because you're like, I don't know if they're going to renew. And that's the largest piece of our income. Like that is a huge thing. And that's going to be happening next month. So there wasn't a time in which I completely let my guard down. I let my guard down a good chunk once you get the contract, right? But in the past couple months, I began to try different ideas and plan for different things depending on the outcome of the contract. So if we get the contract, I'm ready. And we're going to, again, position ourselves in a way that they won't be able to say no the next time they renew the contract. Or they're going to be like, oh, halfway through the contract, but like, we need to upgrade this contract to something more significant. If we don't get the contract, I'm planning a lot less for that. But it's in my mind of getting ourselves situated in a way that we can maximize what we do with minimal income and still see success in that space, whether we get the contract or not. So as far as a comfort level goes, I don't think when you're on your own, unless you're making millions of dollars and and in the market's just looking solid, even then, I don't think you can really let your guard down completely. Like you have to be on a good amount of the time when you run your own stuff. When you are self-employed, you have to hustle. And that is hard sometimes. And as soon as you let your guard down, just like anything else, if you're driving and you stop paying attention for a while, there's more likely to have a problem. Especially something like if you're riding a motorcycle, you got to stay on your P's and Q's, because you took the risk to ride a motorcycle. You took the risk to be self-employed. So you have to pay more attention to the intersections. You have to pay more attention to the weather. You have to pay more attention to the gravel that might be on the ground after it's snowed or after they've removed or done construction. These are the things you got to pay attention to. And to answer your question of whether or not I got to a place of being like, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I'm pretty solid as an entrepreneur. No, I don't think I don't think you 100% get there. Unless you got $10 million in the bank and you live modestly, you're not going to get there. So I'm still working on it.
thinking about how you structure your different ventures and businesses, I'm curious of how you integrate your personal life in with that. I know like a lot of
Sure.
people talk about work-life balance. A lot of people have like very strong opinions either way on it. And so
Mm.
how do you think about that?
So I am in a position where I have a lot of flexibility. I am not married, nor do I have kids, nor do I own a house, nor do I have a lot of debt. I have some, but not a lot. I was able to manage that pretty well working at Penn State because they paid my bills easily, right? I could make sure I didn't keep my debt down. Without those demands on me personally, my work-life balance becomes a little bit simpler. When I talk to folks who are entrepreneurs and they have kids, maybe newborns or 3 or 4 children, and they have all of these demands on their money and time. Maybe they have a family member that might need some attention. Maybe they have different responsibilities throughout their life for whatever reasons. They're then adding all of that on top of running your own business and then still finding time for oneself, right? That is incredibly hard. Me personally, I constantly go through, I shouldn't say constantly, about every 3 to 6 months, I go through an evaluation of looking at my time and then saying to myself, am I happy? And then if I say, I don't know, well, that's a problem. If I say no, that's a problem. If I say anything other than yes, which usually is the case, I need to adjust, right? Because things ebb and things flow, and work sometimes begins to suck up certain areas of your life and you don't even realize it. You got to sometimes, on a regular basis, I take a step back, and I've been doing that a lot more in the past 2 months, actually. Taking a step back and saying, okay, I need to be successful, but I also need to be able to be happy day to day. I need to be able to say, and keep myself healthy for the long term. So all of those things. What is wrong with my schedule? What is wrong with my demands on my time? What am I missing? What am I missing from college days? What am I missing from when I was at Penn State and I had all this free time and I wasn't doing my own thing? What am I missing? And I've begun to look at that and say to myself, I need to add some of these things back. And in response, I say, I need to take some of these things away that I've allocated time. I said, on Wednesdays, I'm going to do this for my job or for the job that I've created. Well, maybe on Wednesdays you don't. Maybe on Wednesdays you've figured out a way to play cards with your friends because that'll bring you happiness. Might you not be able to make X amount of dollars as a result? Sure. But even if I did make all that X amount of dollars, but I'm not happy, what's the point? So there needs to be that balance of understanding. There needs to be time for you in some way, shape, or form, whatever that means. For some people, one of my good friends, I was just talking to him about how he hates driving in the car. Right? For some people, that's their solace. Like my father will just hop in the car and just drive because that's where he finds peace. That's where he gets back to himself. So whatever it means to you to just take some time for you, it is incredibly, incredibly, incredibly important to be able to do that to sustain oneself. Even if that takes away time from the thing that develops your business, it's a responsibility to yourself as an entrepreneur.
Tying into that, I'm curious, as you hope to grow your business or grow different parts of your business, how do you look at kind of scaling and creating a business that still fits into the type of lifestyle that allows you to kind of like focus on yourself and your happiness at the same time? Or is that something you think about?
Absolutely. There are definitely ways that I actively try to balance as I grow. One of those ways is to hire people. Now, hiring people, whether that's, someone here locally in your town, or that's, something through something like Upwork or Fiverr that might be in your country or not, speak the same language or not, regardless of whatever path you go down, it's going to take a lot of work to get them up to speed to do the things that you need to do. So the idea is that as I grow, I'm going to be able to expand the team that I have. And at first, the amount of work should go up really high to make sure that things are going the way that they should. And hiring is not a simple process. Having a job description on a piece of paper and then handing it off to somebody and saying, hey, can you go do this, is not going to be enough. That is not going to be the solution. It is a back and forth process that will probably take weeks upon weeks before they get into a routine where you can say, oh, they're doing it automatically, or I didn't even ask them to do this and they're already taking care of it as a result of that interaction, or however you've defined that. So for me, as I grow, I want to spend less time doing the things that I can outsource. I need to also make sure that I make time to train the folks effectively so that I can properly outsource it. It doesn't make sense to outsource something and then you're still doing most of the work because you didn't properly train the individual. So, and I've run into that problem a couple times. Also, when you're outsourcing, there are certain things that you can't outsource. There's certain things you can't outsource. I've tried to outsource portions of my creativity to other people and say, I want you to do something. I give them I give them parameters and we work through it and we try some stuff out. When it comes to certain areas of creativity, I can't outsource that. I need to be the one to see what those things are and then develop it. Now, I can say once I add all these creative elements, I then can hand off portions of it, but I've realized the limitations of that as well. So in summary, as I scale, I need to outsource. I need to hire people. I need to figure out how to train them effectively and also recognize the limitations of that outsourcing so I don't end up spinning my wheels or spending my money unnecessarily to get the outcome that I desire.
There are a lot of people out there that have either recently quit or are looking to quit. I'm curious, based on, the experience that you've gone through, what's the best piece of feedback or advice you'd give for people that are in similar shoes?
My first reaction is to go back to the demands on you as an individual, what you're responsible for. One of my things my dad has always done is he took care of our family. He went out of his way to not only find the things that he enjoyed doing and found a way to do them, but he also made sure that the family came first. If you're able to do that, whatever the family means to you, whether that's for your dog or your house, or I don't know, maybe you got a squirrel. I don't know, maybe you have a pet squirrel. No offense if you got a pet squirrel. It's cool, you got a pet squirrel, but you got to take care of your pet squirrel. My point is that if you have these demands on you as an individual, you have those responsibilities. I'm not going to necessarily say to you, go off and run off with an idea that you have and give up something that provides for those responsibilities. What I would say is that while you're providing for these responsibilities, see if you can find a way to test out something. Just because you have a cool concept doesn't mean you drop everything on a dime to go do it. What's the minimal viable product and how can you get there? What about your friends and see what you talk to some places and locally we have a place called Launchbox that helps entrepreneurs refine their ideas for free. There's a bunch of places like that. Go to these locations, talk out your ideas, talk out what you want to do, talk out what the business side would be, talk about the money side of things, talk about the time requirements, talk about all these things before you pull the trigger and just leave your job. Now, if you're unhappy with your job, you got to do you, right? If that's, causing you problems, giving heart palpitations or whatever it is, you got to do you and keep your health and your sanity. But if it's a matter of, I got an idea, I hear entrepreneurship is cool, and I think I can do it, more power to you. But first, do your research, take your time, and invest in yourself to do that exploration before risking compromising the responsibilities that you have as an individual. You're going to hear other people say, just go for it. You can do it. You're going to be great. I'm not one of those people. I had the opportunity to test. I should have done it a long time ago. Start testing, start playing, start investigating, start taking mental notes. Then after a little while, take a step back and say, okay, how did that go? What were the good things? What were the bad things? What's a quick SWOT analysis of that? What about moving forward? What's a quick SWOT of that? Let me talk to my partner. Let me talk to my squirrel. Let me talk to the dang squirrel and see what the squirrel says. Maybe the squirrel's happy where the squirrel is or not. And that's how I would proceed forward, is to not rush into it. Take a little bit of time, do your research, and move on from there.
A question that I ask to every guest that comes onto this show is I try to focus on, a medium time frame of not too short, but not too in the long term. Really over the next 3 to 5 years, what are you most excited about?
3 to 5 years is still too far in the future. One of the things that I learned in IT is that doing a 3 to 5 year plan is nice, but technology changes all the time. So much so that you having a solid plan 3 to 5 years from now, it's not going to be what it is. It's helpful to plan, to kind of give an idea of what you want to do with your life. But if you to expect your 3 to 5 year plan to be what it is, if you're able to do that, I need to meet you, because I don't know a single person that said 3 to 5 years from now, I want to do this. And it is exactly that. Maybe Jim Carrey, who wrote a check to himself, was I want to do this and I will $10 million. Maybe you're Jim Carrey, or you're Dwayne The Rock Johnson. But for most of us who are not multi-million dollar business folks, multi-billion dollar business folks, it is slightly different. So let's go back to 3 to 5 years. Let's go back to the thing that I'm looking forward to, what I'm most excited about. What I'm most excited about is to take what I've learned and apply it in the near future. I just recently came back from a conference, and Facebook took us out to give us an update about all the things that were going on for content creation. I met a lot of great content creators. A lot of great ideas were shared. A lot of great perspectives about what the future is going to hold, and the nuances of content creation. I am stoked to take those ideas and put them into motion. I'm excited to test what those things are and play around with that. I'm excited. I had a recent conversation with a good friend of mine who was also an entrepreneur, and he mentioned how he was also upgrading some of the, I forget the technical term, but he needs clients to come into his business. And so basically he's creating a website to make sure he's tracking all of his customers, like a CRM, like a customer resource management tool, to make sure all of his customers are being tracked and managed. And he has different ways of making sure that the right communications go to the right people. I'm excited to take all of what he's doing and then implement it into what I'm doing. I think as an entrepreneur, the exciting part, at least for me, is to find what you're doing and elevate it. Because until you're making those $10 million, $100 million, you can sit back and be a little bit more comfortable. You have to find a way of continuously improving, continuously elevating. And if you don't have these ideas that are triggering and sparking things, go to a conference, go listen to more of this podcast. You know what I mean? Go talk to some other really creative people to get those things firing. And when you do, that's when things begin to elevate. And to me, I don't know how far I'm going to be able to elevate this, but whatever my 3 to 5 year plan is, if I can elevate this to a good degree, hopefully my 3 to 5 year plan looks even better than what I think so today. But to right now, in the near future, I need to put these pieces in. I need to say to myself, we're going to track 200 to 300 to 500. I need to get 100,000 people inside of my CRM, organize them correctly, and start sending out notifications to these folks and tracking to see how that performance goes. I need to make sure that I'm creating content for short-form content, long-form content, and putting ad spend behind the things that I'm doing in a way that is effective and seeing the return on investment, and then playing around with that, then finding the right equation. I'm like, okay, where is that going to take me, right? And then when you say a month from now, what's your 3 to 5 year plan? I'm going to be like, well, it looks certainly different than what I would have said a month ago, because I'm ready to take this out to something else. So I don't want to do a 3 to 5 year plan for me. What I want to do is, within a month, I want to take 50% of the ideas that I have, put them into motion in some way, shape, or form. Go back to my initial point of testing, seeing what works, test it out, figure out what works, and then build upon it. In 1 month, I want to put 50% of my ideas into motion and see how it goes. That's my 3 to 5 year plan.
Yeah, I just want to give you a chance to, for all the listeners out there, if there's anything in particular you like connecting with people on, or the best way to reach out to you or connect with you, just to kind of end it.
Absolutely. My name is Jason Browne. I am a speechwriter. I am a host. I give speeches to conferences and organizations. I do workshops on anything from organizational development to DEI to just empowerment and energizing your organization or community for that matter. I am also a content creator on Facebook. The name is All Rebels, AW Rebels, fb.gg/All Rebels. We create a lot of wild content over there. We've been in that game for years. We know everything from live streaming to game tournaments to fundraisers. Anything in that space, you got to let me know. Or if you want to work on the nonprofit side, I'm currently board chair of a local nonprofit, but I've also worked with the Rotary Club, International Rotary Club, throughout the entire world, giving speeches, working with them on a number of different topics and different initiatives as well. So all of that to say that you can reach out to me at thejasonbrowne.com. That's Brown with an E, thejasonbrowne.com, or you can message me at connect@thejasonbrowne.com.
Love it. Well, I'm excited to see where you take everything next. I really appreciate your time, and I'm excited to share your story with everybody.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate hanging out with you. Are you still enjoying the entrepreneur side of your work? Let me ask you a question.
No, that's a great question. I am. I think the thing is that it's something new every day. I think for me, something I always talk about is like, what I value between business and personal. I think something that's so important for me is flexibility. A bunch of my passions in life are tied around traveling. And so I think having the ability to control my own schedule, the ability to dictate when and where I work from. I got to spend a month in Costa Rica working from there because, my wife and I don't have kids. We don't have responsibilities. We can work. We both work remote, so we can work from anywhere. And so I think, while the day-to-day is always stressful, and I think like being an entrepreneur is a lot more stressful than it's cracked up to be, I think I am able to do things in life that I would never be able to do with a 9-to-5 job. And so at least at the current moment, it's worth it for me. I'm sure there could become a time where I get sick and tired of the grind and the day-to-day. But I think like as of now, I always love learning new things. I love experiencing new things, and I love traveling. And I think like this lifestyle affords that for me.
Just to all the folks out there trying to be entrepreneurs or wanting to be entrepreneurs, or you have an entrepreneurial heart, even this exchange, I just took away something that I'm going to apply to myself. This is the important thing about connecting with other really exciting people, entrepreneurial people with a lot of ideas. While I've heard the idea of going to work in another country before, it wasn't until you just said that I was like, I could probably move my studio to Costa Rica for a month. I could probably pay less rent. I could probably have a pretty high-speed connection still in Costa Rica and accomplish all the things I need to do. Yeah, I had to do a few luggage things here. I thought about all of that stuff. I've already started to plan the kind of things, the way that the whole place would be set up just based upon this conversation. And that's my 3 to 5 year plan. So again, my suggestion is to surround yourself with these other really important people. Ask the questions so that you can get some answers and continue to push your stuff forward. So thanks for your response, Dave. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. It really means a lot to us. We want to hear from you as we keep growing. Please reach out on whyquit.co if you have any feedback or potential guests. A special thanks to Chris Dole for the music. Please check out his newest album, Here's to You, on Spotify. Thank you, and we will be back next week with another episode.